Hello. Welcome to another episode of Walk the Dog Cinema. Here we are, nice afternoon, taking our daily stroll. The Roca is all prepared. Say hello to everybody, Roca. Roca, say hello. Say hellos. Say hellos. Yeah. As you can see, she gets very preoccupied and wants to head out into the world and catch all the sights. So that's what we're doing. And in the meantime, while the dogs bark in the neighborhood, I'm going to discuss, I'm kind of on my comedy horror binge still a little bit here. And I'm going to touch on another 80s nostalgia movie like Pandemonium. And I decided to watch Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, kind of a cult classic for the 80s. Elvira was really big in the 80s, taking over the horror hosts, and kind of became all about Halloween. And she released a movie, and sat down and watched it, and gonna talk about it. So sit back and enjoy the listen. So here we're at, getting closer and closer to Halloween, and kind of doing a little bit of macabre, but funny before I get going into some real horror movies. And decided to watch Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, which I hadn't seen in quite some time. And starring Elvira, aka Cassandra Peterson, and being really far removed from the movie. I don't know if I ever thought the movie was inherently super funny. I always had in the back of my mind, I remembered set pieces. I remembered, some of the sexual innuendo puns. But coming at it from an older adult perspective, I kind of actually liked the script much more than when I was a teenager. The teenager thing wasn't like some sex-filled thing. Elvira was never kind of like my type, so to speak, in that regard. I mean, she's pretty in the film, and as the horror host, but it was always just cool because she was kind of associated with Halloween. And in my neighborhood, I was kind of one of the few that was like really into Halloween at the time. But it was one of those movies I caught, on probably HBO back in the day, or something, whatever movie channel was on, shortly, probably about a year after it hit the theaters. But I knew who Elvira was. I'd watching the TV shows. I remember being at one of my grandparents' house, and when she did some 3D movie where you had to reset your TV up to do the color scheme on it, so the movie would be 3D on your TV set. And I remember like boob jokes and stuff like that with 3D on that. And I want to say that was roughly 83-ish or 84. I could be wrong, but like I said, I remember Elvira from like all the way back then, and all the cool commercials and everything. So the movie, is it worth your time? Oh yeah, you got to watch this movie at least once. It's a cult classic. It's funny. It's not necessarily like airplane jokes or anything like that. It's a little bit more classic comedy, fish out of water. And ultimately for me, yes, it's a simple plot. Elvira wants to do a show in Vegas, and it's a nice play because Cassandra Peterson, Elvira, the actress, was kind of like a Vegas showgirl like back in the day, or kind of did off that, but so there's like some truth to the script within the context, and there's all these like inside things with that. And so mixing all of those elements kind of makes an interesting script, because you get a really, it's like Salem witch trials in Massachusetts, because she goes to this place called Falwell, Massachusetts. Jerry Falwell, fallen preacher guy, was big in the news around all that time. So, it's all play on the Puritan and the sinning and all that. And so, which was kind of big in the 80s, and especially right around this time. I know Steve Martin did like Leap of Faith. Like, there was a lot of that kind of going on in the late 80s, early 90s. So, but out of that, the Elvira character in and of herself really works for that element to play off of that. Considering, she's kind of this goth, heavy metal kind of lady, not just, yes, associated with Halloween, but it kind of takes on more association of the macabre and the elements of that. And like I said, she feels like more Halloweenish than just kind of like a monster. And so it's an interesting play on using a lot of the horror elements in this setting, and I think they do a really great job with that. So it's to me well worth the watch. Sandra Peterson does a great job. I mean, she's in full bloom as Elvira, and she doesn't ever break character. She holds her own. She's got a lot of charisma. She carries the movie, along with her adopted poodle Algonquin, which I heard they had lots of trouble on the set with the dog, but you would never notice that. The dog's great in the film. She kind of punk rocks him up in very late 80s fashion. Not early 80s, late 70s punk fashion. We're talking, the kind of Hollywood-isms of what the punk scene had kind of morphed into. I would almost say like punkabilly, more or less, with pink hair and just the whole aesthetics of that. So I would go more with punkabilly, the creeps and just that whole like neon aesthetic, which was already starting in the late 80s here. So I love the dog in it. Like usual, lots of boob jokes, lots of sexual innuendos. They come pretty fast and furious. They are subtle on some level, some not so much. I mean, there's no nudity or anything like that, but there's some great play within the community, and the basis is her aunt, who was a witch, and so I'm gonna get into some spoilers here, passes away and is handing Elvira, her niece, her house and her cookbook. The cookbook, lo and behold, is a witch's book, and there's a great scene where Elvira cooks a casserole with unintended consequences for the town, and they all become horn dogs, and they have a great big orgy in PG fashion. It is quite funny, though, actually. The lady from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Planes, Trains, and Automobile, dang it, I forget her name. When you see her, she has the orange hair. She does the F-bomb shtick with Steve Martin. She's great in this as Chastity. She's this pure Puritan, and she's a prude. And I heard that there was more to the script with her, but they decided to kind of get the teenagers more involved in the town and things like that, and so it took away some of the adult interactions of the movie. And I'm fine with that. If it would have gone more rated R, that would have been, I think, a better path. I don't mind the path that they took. I think overall, I like how it plays off of the Salem witch trials, and and it leads to a witch trial and a burning. That's kind of the really big misstep, is that she wanted to get Tim Burton, who she had shown up in Pee-wee's Big Adventure for, and Paul Rubens was going to do a cameo. You do see a cameo of Pee-wee Herman in this as a doll, so look for that. But he couldn't do it. He was doing Big Top Pee-wee. But also Tim Burton was doing a movie that we now know as Beetlejuice, so he couldn't do this movie. And I don't know if Tim Burton would have added anything to it, or it would have made it too macabre. Maybe not. It's hard to say. He did the Old Town aesthetics with Beetlejuice, but I get the idea why she wanted him to do it, but at the same time, I don't know if he would have added anything to it. I think the director did a fine job on that level with the art direction, all that. Where I think it gets klutzy and clunky is really the ending. The director really didn't know how to frame it, and the basis of it, again, simple, is she has an uncle, just like the aunt, who is a Satan worshiper, basically, and he wants the book for his own powers to get all the demonic power and basically rule Earth, right? So pretty simple premise, done to maximum efficiency. Just clunky when we get the showdown between Elvira and her uncle. It does come off clunky and a little haphazard, and a better director would have handled that much better, which I think is what the movie needed. It kind of needs a little, just like a little punch to kind of get it moving forward sometimes, where the easy way it moves through the film is fine, but as we kind of build to that end, it kind of needed to build some histrionics into it, and the director needed to get moving. And so the witch burning scene and all of that just comes off kind of loquacious and slow, and it needs some zip to it. And I think that's where, when you hear about Tim Burton, he would have really had some pizzazz to it that would have kind of elevated the movie even higher, where this one, it takes down what all the good it did prior to that. So that's kind of the downside of the film, but I still think it's worth a watch at least once. It's one of those movies that you just kind of have to see to believe, in one sense, and it's Elvira. It's like her best movie, and yeah, so, you know, I'll continue on. And so besides all that, there's all sorts of nice little play on words. Her uncle's name is Vincent Talbot, which, you know, Vincent Price, Larry Talbot. You get some horror references. Her love interest is Bob. Nice, you know, just common name, Bob. They play it to maximum effectiveness. Bob is pure heart as gold, and an aw shucks kind of Midwestern guy, even though this is Massachusetts, so whatever. But they play on that. But the other side of it is Bob is named after the man who had done a lot of Elvira, helped her build the Elvira character with the costume and the setup and her hair and her wigs and all of that. So, and he had passed away prior to the film being finished. There's a painting of his that's Elvira's aunt, which is actually Elvira herself outside of the costume. That's on the wall. That's painted by Bob, her assistant here. And yeah, he sadly passed away, if I'm not mistaken, of AIDS or something like that, prior to the film being finished. So she kind of dedicates Bob, the character, to, you know, be him. Let's see what else. You know, it has some decent special effects. The endings, I'll get to it. The ending goes into kind of an iconic thing with her car, and she gets to Vegas, and all I gotta say is you have to see it to believe it, but we do get boob tassels like a la burlesque getting swirled by Elvira at the very end. And so for your horny dogs, yes, there's no nudity, but you do get a burlesque-like moment with Elvira at the very end. It's played for laughs on some level, tongue-in-cheek, but you know, all I can say is, yeah, of course. If you ever been to Not Scary Farm and seen Elvira when she performed there, yeah, that's pretty much what you got on stage. Basically is the end of this movie. So there you have it. Kind of childhood growing up. You know, she did it for a long time. She hasn't been in costume and makeup for quite some time. Saw her last shows at, you know, Not Scary Farm, so it was kind of cool send off to see that. But yeah, you know, it's kind of a classic character that we're not going to kind of see. I know there's Svengoolie out there, but you know, she kind of made the horror host like even a step above and beyond, you know, just Wolfman Jack and just kind of like even Vampira and all that. She elevated it. So it's part of Americana, I think, to me. You know, it's a decent movie. It was supposed to lead into a sitcom. So I guess there's a pilot of it maybe out there on YouTube. I heard it's pretty bad because they didn't really just did a normal sitcom with Elvira instead of it kind of being like a Addams Family Monsters mashup with her. Maybe just kind of like this movie dealing with regular people, but it's Elvira and her house is weird, and could have done a lot with what had been done before, like with the monsters and all that. Especially when you think of Elvira, you know, she played schlocky movies, so you could have done a bunch of like homages to schlocky movies within a sitcom element, and maybe it would have done something, who knows. But that was the basis of also why the movie was made, is she kind of wanted to lead to a pilot, and it didn't get off the ground, but Elvira still lives in infamy or famous, however you wish to look at it. So there you have it. I hope you take a look at it. Let me know what you think of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. If you think it's funny, if you think it's too crude, so be it. So remind you of your childhood in some letter as you're growing up in the 80s, and it just kind of encapsulates what Halloween was all about during that time. And let me know what you think in the comments. If you like and want to keep going on this movie journey, please subscribe, and more coming your way. Otherwise, everyone have a good one. Talk to you later.